All right, let's talk about something truly wild. Deep in the Sahara Desert, one of the most punishing places on the planet, a massive construction project is underway. They are laying down hundreds of kilometers of railway track, cutting right through the sand. And this isn't just some local project. It's a multi-billion-dollar mystery that could change the future of an entire continent. And that brings us to the big question right off the bat. Why would anyone build a state-of-the-art railway in what looks like the middle of nowhere? On the surface, it just doesn't make any sense. But the real answer? Well, that's where things get really interesting.
And we are not talking about small change here. The price tag for this is nearly $3 billion. You just don't spend that kind of money laying track in an empty desert, unless you have a massive strategic reason. This isn't just an infrastructure project, it's a huge geopolitical statement.
And think about the sheer difficulty of it. We're talking about 495 kilometers of steel rails, baking under extreme heat, getting blasted by sandstorms. The logistics are a nightmare. So why go through all the trouble? What is the prize that makes all of this worth it?
That brings us to our first section, because this railway isn't actually going nowhere. It's aimed like an arrow at the heart of a continental problem, and a massive opportunity.
See, here's the thing. The official story is pretty straightforward. It's just about economic development. But what's really going on is a high-stakes fight for control over the future of African trade, who profits from the continent's incredible resources, and who gets to write the rules for the next century. To really get why Algeria is making this huge bet, you have to zoom out and look at a problem that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. You have to look at the map that, for the most part, everyone's just ignored. Exactly. Go look up any trade map of Africa, and the Sahara is basically this giant blank spot. It's a massive barrier that literally splits the continent's economy in two. It isolates North Africa from the resource-rich Sahel and everything south of it.
Now, sure, there is a road, the Trans-Saharan highway, but it's slow, it's often unstable, and there's only so much you can move with trucks. A railway, though, that's a completely different game. It's faster, it's more direct, and it can move something like 20 times the cargo. It doesn't just improve the route, it completely rewrites the economic map.
And think about what this means for a landlocked country like Niger. Right now, for them to sell their resources, they're forced to ship everything south to coastal ports. That means crossing multiple borders, dealing with different sets of rules, paying fees at every checkpoint, all while hoping the political situation stays calm. They are completely dependent on their neighbors, and that dependence is expensive.
So with that problem on the table, now we can see where Algeria's grand plan comes in. For years, they were pretty cautious. But just recently, they made a sharp, decisive pivot, putting this railway right at the center of their entire national strategy.
And you have to see how fast this all happened. For a long time, Algeria kept big international partners at arm's length. Then, boom. November 2025, the head of the African Development Bank flies into the country. Just 2 days later, a major partnership is announced, and this railway is officially a top national priority. That's a huge signal that something has changed.
And the big idea driving this shift has a name: mineral sovereignty. The African Development Bank even used that exact phrase. It's the simple but powerful idea that a country shouldn't just dig its resources out of the ground and ship them away raw. No, you should process them, you add value to them, and you keep that wealth inside your own country.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? For decades, Algeria's economy has been built on being a huge energy exporter, basically a gas station for Europe. This new strategy is them saying, that's over. Now the ambition is to be something much more: a processor, a manufacturer, and a major logistics hub.
So, let's break down the master plan. It kind of unfolds in 4 main steps. Step 1, you build the railway, creating the physical corridor. Step 2, you connect that railway to the incredible mineral wealth of the Sahel, all that lithium, cobalt, and rare earths the world is desperate for. Step 3, you build factories to process those minerals in Algeria. And step 4, you become the main gateway to ship those high-valued goods directly to Europe.
Okay, so this is where the whole thing gets even more significant. Because this one project, this one corridor, it could lead to one of 2 totally different futures, not just for Algeria, but for the entire region. Which brings us to the most important question of all. What is this new corridor really for? Is it just a faster, more modern pipeline for sucking resources out of Africa? Or is it the beginning of a genuinely new way of doing things? So let's look at Path 1, the optimistic vision.
This is the idea that it becomes a truly integrated African corridor. Because it's led by an African institution, the AFDB, the goal is to drive down transport costs for everybody, from local farmers to small businesses, and to make sure the benefits stay right here on the continent.
Then, of course, there's Path 2, the more pessimistic take. And this is a story we've all seen before, right? That this is just a fancier, more efficient extraction route designed to get raw materials out of Africa as fast as possible, while all the real money, the value add, the processing happens somewhere else.
But you know, when you dig into the details, the clues actually seem to point toward Path 1. First, the key financial partner is the African Development Bank, not an outside power. They're calling themselves a strategic partner. Second, this isn't just one railway. It's the start of a planned 15,000-kilometer national network. And most importantly, the project is explicitly tied to building local processing plants. That's the real game changer.
So the plan is ambitious, the vision is there, but let's be realistic for a second. Having a great plan is one thing. Actually pulling it off is another. There are massive obstacles still in the way, and a huge question mark hangs over this whole thing.
And we are talking about some major hurdles. Security in the region can be unstable. The desert itself is a relentless enemy. Sandstorms and scorching heat mean maintenance is going to be incredibly tough and expensive. And maybe the biggest risk of all is execution, that the railway gets built, but the economic benefits never actually make it down to the local community.
But here's why this is so important, even with all those risks. The very act of trying changes the game. For the very first time, landlocked countries in the Sahel have a real, viable alternative for getting their goods to the world. They're no longer completely dependent on the coastal nations. That gives them leverage. It gives them options. And that, right there, is the crucial takeaway from all of this. This is what modern geopolitics really looks like. It's not just about who has the biggest army or the most treaties anymore. It's about who owns the corridors, who controls the ports, and who builds the infrastructure that dictates how money and resources flow around the world.
So in the end, we're left with this one great unanswered question. Is this railway the beginning of a new pattern for Africa? One where African nations and African institutions take control and build their own future? Or are we just watching new players step into a very old game of resource extraction? The tracks are being laid, but the final destination is still very much unknown.